Any questions? Because then I would want to move to the next step, which is called trimming. I want to cover at least some part of trimming today so that you can actually go back home, start to work on the function models of your system and see if trimming is possible there or not. Any questions still here? Okay, great. So now let us look at trimming. Now, trimming is an analytical tool for removing certain components and redistributing their useful functions among remaining system or supersystem components. See, if there is a component in a system, it must be performing some functions. Some of those functions could be useful functions. So when you trim them, when you remove those components, those functions need to be reassigned to some other component in the engineering system. Hai na? So trimming is not only about removing certain components, but then equally importantly, redistributing their useful functions among other components. If I am unable to redistribute the useful functions among other components, I cannot trim that particular component, even if its value that it is adding is very low. If it is the only component that can do that particular function, then I have to keep that component in my system. I cannot trim it. So let us take the example of a motorcycle. We discussed that when we were discussing TRIZ. Yaad hai aapko? In that session on TRIZ, we discussed this example of a motorcycle. What did we want to do? We wanted to reduce its cost. So we made the function model of the motorcycle. We broadly said there are a few components of the engineering system: motor, wheels, frame, gas tank. There are supersystem components, which are road and gas, and there is a driver. Driver is the target because the driver is being moved. The motorcycle, all of this moves the target only. So driver is the target. And now we looked at, see, which thing can I trim? Can I trim the motor? If I trim the motor, is there anything else in the system that can rotate the wheels? Can the frame rotate the wheels? No. Can the gas tank rotate the wheels? No. So no, bhai, I cannot trim the motor. Looking at the wheels, can I trim the wheels? If I remove the wheels, what will work on the road? So something, the road needs to be in contact with something which should move. So nothing else in the system, neither the frame nor the gas tank nor the motor, I would want to be in touch with the road. So the wheels also cannot be removed. Now, if I say I trim the frame, then what will hold the wheels? What will hold the gas tank? What will hold the driver? Really, itni sari cheezon ko hold karna hai, the frame is needed. Then we look at the gas tank. Can I remove the gas tank? See, gas tank is performing only one function, which is holding the gas. Do you think some other component in the engineering system can do that function? Can some other component in the engineering system do that function? Holding the gas? I can probably reassign that function to the frame. And then I can trim the gas tank. So now frame holds the gas tank, like in this particular photo. And I have trimmed the gas tank and I have reduced the cost of my system. And you have a Luna kind of a thing there. You could have other bikes which are like that. Now, it may not appear to be very fashion savvy. Is it not? It looks very small. It does not give that grandiose feeling that you would want to have with the motorcycle that you own. But the cost of the system has reduced. If I would say that nahi, gas tank ko bhi nahi trim kar sakte the, to hum kya kehte? There is another person which is an outsider, a roadside looker, and the gas tank informs that particular person about my social status, that I am a rich guy, I'm carrying this big a motorcycle. If I would add that function there, then that function could have been moved to something else. But since that function is not defined in this function model at all, we did not do anything about it. So the end product does not look that appealing to the eye. But that's fine. That was not even the target there then. Am I right? So let me ask you this question. What is the main function of a Ferrari car? What is the main function of a Ferrari car? If I or you purchase a Ferrari car, what do you think would be the main function of it?
So carrying the passenger simply. Any car would simply carry a passenger.
But so any car would do, na?
Yes, sir.
Speed. मैं Ferrari car लूंगा भी क्या दिल्ली में मैं क्या किस स्पीड पे चला सकता हूँ? Speed is the main function. Sorry?
Looks also, how the car looks.
Yes, it informs my society that I am a person who is rich. I own a Ferrari. Show off. है ना? So when you want to work on a Ferrari and reduce its cost, can you compromise with the looks of the car? No. Because that is the main function. You only want to further enhance it. Any cost cutting you do elsewhere. You see? But when I'm talking about a bike, there are so many people who are not bothered about the looks. They would rather have a cheaper bike. So they would go with this. Yes, there was a question. Sorry.
Yes, sir. Sir, I had one question. Sir, does the main function of an object or a system change with respect to different people? For example, if there's a racer, for him, Ferrari might not be about looks, but about performance and sport.
Yes, it changes. Very good observation. Very good observation, Karanjot. So हम कभी भी function model जब बनाते हैं, you know, we just discussed now that we will not show some functions in one function model and we would show those in another function model. We discussed that air cools coffee, coffee cools air. कौन सा function हम बना रहे हैं वही कौन सा engineering system की बात हो रही है उस पर depend करेगा. What problem we are trying to solve उस पर depend करेगा, है ना? So you're absolutely right. It changes with the context. The function model will change with the context because the relevant and irrelevant functions will change.
Yes, sir.
And
so,
for a product, can we say the context is basically the stakeholder?
The context is the customer. You may say that stakeholder. Stakeholder भी कह सकते हो, vendor भी हो सकता है. But primarily for businesses, it will be customers. Customer is God, huh?
Yes, sir.
So let us look at a few guidelines for trimming. See, select components based on project goals and constraints. अगर मेरा project goal होता कि I have to impress my social circle also, then I would have put that also as a component of my super system and a function associated with it. वो नहीं था तो मैंने नहीं डाला था अभी बाइक के साथ, है ना? And then we trim the components with key disadvantages in order to maximize the improvements of the engineering system. And we cannot trim if there are no acceptable alternatives. Okay. We will just look at some rules of trimming. And in the next class, we'll also look at radical trimming. Okay. We can't cover radical trimming today. It will take a little longer. But we will look at some rules of the trimming, basic trimming, so that you can just experiment with the projects that you're working on. And radical trimming, if you perform radical trimming, you will see that the solutions could be very, very neat. But again, it is possible only if the project goals and constraints allow that to happen. Okay. Again, trimming can be less or more conservative depending on the number and relative importance of the trimmed component. So if there are 100 components in a system and the system is overall performing only few functions, you can probably think of removing many of those 100 components. But if a system has only 2 components and both are performing some function on the target, you may probably not be able to trim either of the 2 components. Are you able to see this? When there are many components, there is a possibility to trim something. When there are very few components, the possibility to trim also So let us quickly look at the rules of trimming. And trimming के साथ जो key philosophy है, that less is more. That is the basic idea. So looking at the rules of the trimming, a function can be trimmed if we remove the object of the useful function. So if I've already trimmed the object of a useful function, then I can also trim this particular component. Okay. So there was a function carrier which was acting on some object. If there is no object that a carrier is acting on, that a component is acting on, that particular component can be removed. Second is, let us say the object was not removed, but I enhanced the object of the function that it could now do the useful action by itself. For example, self-service wala principle, where I say that something self-serves itself. So if that self-serving is already possible, then I do not need to have another function carrier. I can trim the function carrier now. Another way to remove an object is assign the function that was happening to another function carrier in the engineering system, and that new function carrier or that other function carrier now performs the function. A function carrier can be trimmed if another component becomes the function carrier instead. Okay? So 3 rules. Function carrier can be trimmed if we remove the object of the function. It can be trimmed if the object of the function does self-service. It can be trimmed if some other component can be assigned that function. Now, to select another component as a new function carrier, at least one of the 4 conditions should be satisfied. First is that the component may already perform an identical or similar function on the object of the function. The component already performs an identical or similar function on another object in the system. A component performs any function on the object of the function, or at a minimum at least interacts with the object of a function. We will see what this means. This might look cryptic. आप इसको दोबारा से पढ़ेंगे, it will become simple for you. Or the component possesses a set of resources necessary to perform the required function. Let us look at the example of toothbrush. Toothbrush में 3 components हैं: the handle, the head, and the bristles. Let us say I want to remove the head. Head had the minimum functionality there. I remove the head. What happens? Is there anything else that is performing some function on the bristles? No. There are only 3 components. Handle does not interact with the bristles. So there is nothing it can do. Now, handle, however, performs an identical function, which is hold and move on the head. You remember? Handle held and moved the head. When you cut off the head was actually holding and moving the bristles only. So hold and move, both functions are being performed by the handle. I can probably transfer this particular function of holding and moving the bristles also to the handle itself and not have the head there. Or in some cases, there may be a component that is performing any function on the object of the function. So some interaction it is happening with the bristles. And then we could say that, okay, that is good enough. We will assign it the function. Or the component may possess the set of resources necessary to perform the required function. So you go from the first rule, second, third, जहां पे आपको एक अलग component मिल गया, you don't need to go further. Okay, so this is the sequence in which you will approach identifying the other component for acting as a function carrier.